I am from South Texas, Corpus Christi, and kind of funny because I was just talking about this. My first concert was actually Rush and UFO. I was about 12 or 13. I was a big Kiss fan as early as about, probably 1975, about 10 years old, you know? And just prior to that, was very young. The babysitter turned me on to Elton John, and Elton John blew my mind. The babysitter didn't blow my mind. The Elton John records that she played for me freaked me out in a good way. I started for birthdays and Christmas. I would get Elton stuff all the time. I had a stack. I don't know why I was attracted to it, other than later on figuring out that I think Elton was one of those guys, kind of like Alice Cooper, who could write a song that was kind of dark and weird, but also had songs that were emotionally valuable in the way that they could kind of be balladeering and make you cry, or have emotional responses, as well as all of the darkness that Alice brought. And I got into Alice right after Elton, and then I got into Kiss, and Kiss kind of like shattered every previous love that I had, because it seemed like guys in Kiss were having all the fun, right? So after a few years of that, a couple years of that, I started listening to Judas Priest and AC/DC and Rush and UFO and Thin Lizzy and all of these bands that were, a lot of those bands would actually start their tours in the 70s. They would start their tours in like Laredo and San Antonio and Corpus Christi, and then they kind of spoke up, they'd work their way, and so a lot of that was happening. I got my first bass guitar. For some reason I wanted to play bass. I blame it on Gene Simmons. Got my first bass when I was 12 and didn't have an amp, but just playing in the mirror, faking it for a while. Eventually got an amp and would put the records on, and just didn't know how to tune it, but I would just find a string that was close enough to the note I was hearing through the speakers, and find the right note on the bass and just go. And eventually it was literally every day running home from school to my bass and flipping the records until I could play every song on the record. It was self-taught, just boom, 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 every record I had. And I had 3 brothers, so I would, when they were gone, I'd go steal their record collection, bring it in, and try to jam along with their records. And they had stuff, ZZ Top, Moxie, all this 70s classic rock now that actually still plays around. That's kind of cool. The Gods, if you remember the Gods, Humble Pie, Nazareth, all the good shit. And here was this young guy trying to play along with it and figuring some of it out. By 13, I was in my first band, 14 maybe, and it was with some older guys, and was eventually kicked out because I think they thought I was cramping their style, because we play like keg parties or some shit, and here I am, 14, 15 years old, and they're 17, 18, 19, and they're trying to get chicks, and I'm trying to just play rock and roll. Man, we're gonna play some more. Let's go. Let's play it again. Let's go. Let's play. And their agenda is different than mine. I blame it on the age difference, and I believe that I just was cramping their style a little bit. So that hurt me. It was like, oh man, because I was hooked, right? So 17 years old, had some bands after that, but 17 moved to Austin. And started a band called Fallen Angel. Still friends with some of those guys. Guitar player recently passed away, but playing covers, not really writing anything. I had a couple of originals that were really bad, and I had very little choir experience. I wasn't a singer yet, and we were auditioning singers. I remember in this band Fallen Angel. We were pretty terrible, but anyway, Judas Priest covers, Rush, and all the shit I just mentioned, Hendrix, whatever, and we'd invite people over to say, hey, you sing? Yeah, man, I'm a singer. And they'd come and they'd just blow it, right? And me and the drummer looking at each other going just behind their back while they're singing. This guy calls himself a singer? God, we're not even singers and we're better than this guy. So eventually we took over. 6 months later, both of us were fronting our own bands. And the band that I ended up in was a band called Watchtower, who later on, a few years into that was probably 82, and that band is still together. They just put out a record, but that band is arguably a pioneer of what would be called progressive metal or something. Like Mike Portnoy was a big fan, and while they were called Majesty pre-Dream Theater at Berkeley, wrote me fan letters. So kind of strange, weird thing there. And now it's like, look what happened to us, and it's pretty cool that way. Watchtower I cut my teeth as a singer in Watchtower, and the music is so different. It's barely rock and roll, Mark. It's like jazz time, but loud, and it sounds like a Rush album, really loud and fast, falling down the stairs in time. Just psycho metal. And I was singing really high. I was like a Geddy Lee, angry, just really high. And some people would call it screaming, but anyway, I learned how to do that before I learned how to have any melody, And there was melody in that stuff, but it was very busy. Did that for a long time till the end of '87. I had met, this rock band called Onyx, had a girl singer who called herself Onyx. And that band is basically Dangerous Toys with her singing. So they got rid of her somehow. She moves on. They call me because they knew me from Watchtower. They said, why don't you just come in and fill in for a while till we find a permanent, and I'm like, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I'd seen them, and they were kind of they were very glammy compared to Watchtower stuff, which was a little more metal. The common denominator was colorful spandex. Insert laugh track. So I was in both bands for a little while. About 6 months later, someone had come down to like the second ever South by Southwest music conference down in Austin that everybody in the world knows about now, and saw this band Dangerous Toys, which is just Onyx. This band Onyx with me, who was still kind of fresh, and someone had been down to Austin to see the very first South by Southwest and seen Onyx play, and had come back, and that would have been '87. Came back in '88 and saw. Went and saw Onyx play. It was Celine Armbeck from SBK Songs who got us the deal with CBS, Columbia. She goes down to see Onyx in 87, 88, and says, something's wrong with this. And someone's overhearing her. This is not the same band. That's the same singer, but where's the band? What happened? Something's different. And they go, oh, you're talking about the Toys. And she's like, What are you saying? The Toys? Yeah, Dangerous Toys. Come on. They got a cab and they went to the club we were playing at. It's like 15 people. It's a Sunday night. It's like, South by used to only be like a 2-day, 3-day weekend. And it was only music. It wasn't a trade show for, there was no internet. So that's kind of how Dangerous Toys kind of came about. I started playing covers with these guys. Eventually started writing a few things. There was manager Tim Heine a friend of mine had sent a cassette tape of Watchtower on one side and Dangerous Toys on the other, some demo stuff. And we had gotten that call right around the same time that Celine from SBK was down seeing us South by, courting us. And so we hooked them both up, and the rest is kind of history as far as that went. It's kind of very strange how fast it happened for the Toys, but no regrets. And eventually, of course, I had to leave Watchtower and kind of owed them a little bit of money. So the first check was like, part of it was here, pay those guys off, soprano style kind of thing or something. But I love rock and roll. I still play bass. I've been teaching at the School of Rock for 12 years, and everything's great.